So yes, we're here today to all hopefully get a little bit more information on how to boost partner engagement. And as I mentioned, a little bit of a quick intro and background to us, where Viewpoint has come from and why we believe it's the future of partner communications and how to boost partner engagement. So as many of you will know, I'm also CEO of Pure Channels, the channel agency, global channel marketing agency set up 18 years ago by the original founder and my predecessor here. We've spent the last 18 years working with and designing campaigns and go-to-market and partner communications for some of the world's largest vendors, disties, and partners. That, coupled with how things have changed dramatically over the last couple of years, and the way that we as human beings access and consume content, largely forced by the recent pandemic that we were thrust into. But we've become, in B2B, much more consumerized, and therefore we access and consume content in a very different way these days, that is multi-directional, multi-dimensional, and not necessarily the traditional one-directional activity that it used to be. As a result, consumers of content have moved on, but the sharers and the posters of that content, particularly in the IT channel, are struggling to catch up, which has a knock-on effect, meaning that partner engagement is low. Some might argue at an all-time low, and therefore Viewpoint is looking to address that. The other thing that I think contributes to this, and one of the reasons that we've built Viewpoint, is because probably for the best part of let's call it the last decade, but from one of the attendees, she may be able to put me right on that. No names mentioned, Kerry. But for the last decade or so, the IT channel globally has typically tended to focus on the through piece, the TCMA, through channel marketing automation platforms that have thrived and been built and grown over the last kind of 5 to 10 years, which has been amazing, which has been fantastic for vendors, for disties and partners throughout the global IT channel. However, I also feel at the same time, the two partner marketing, the two partner communications piece has been somewhat neglected, and we've defaulted back to just typical monthly newsletters, regular emails, and that has contributed to partner engagement being at what I consider to be an all-time low. So the background there is that we've been in it for a long time. We've been doing it. We've run and managed and written and crafted and designed and built and templated up thousands and thousands and thousands of partner communications, the traditional vendor newsletter, across the many years that we've been doing this. And we've seen the trends of late, and we've built Viewpoint as what we believe to be a better way of communicating with partners and a way of boosting partner engagement. So in order to add a little perspective, I'm going to hand over to Colin, who's our Viewpoint lead here, and he'll just take you through a few things to put some of that theory into context.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, so my name's Colin Derbyshire. I'm the Customer Development Manager for Viewpoints. My experience is kind of vast, really, in terms of, I guess, marketing and the two partners side in terms of comms and working with Glenn. But I did work for a startup security vendor for a while as channel director, and that meant being the point person for all business development and two partner comms and all of the marketing, really. And as a one-man band, we're obviously a small vendor, but, I speak to lots of larger vendors all the time, and they have very small marketing resources. My main issue was getting mind share of those partners. I had a limited budget, and it was, where do I spend it? Is it on events? Is it partner communication days? Or is it otherwise? Now, for me at the time, if I had a tool that allowed me to communicate directly with a distributors partner network, for example, then I would have been all over that. Absolutely. If you look at the numbers of communications that vendors are sending to partners on a daily and weekly basis, it's phenomenal. So if I could get some of that partner mindshare, absolutely, I would have wanted that immediately. As you can see from the slide here, to put it in perspective, the average vendor will send out 10 to 20 comms a week, and that could be, that'll be events, blogs, videos, you name it. So a combination of content. Small to medium partners, on average, will work with 10 to 15 vendors. So that could be up to 300 communications a week for each partner. And obviously, they can't read all of that. That's in newsletters, all kinds of content being delivered. But I want top of their mind share. So this is a way to do it. Large and enterprise partners on average, they'll have 20 to 30 vendors. So that, again, that doubles the number of communications. So tremendous amount of emails and content being delivered to partners that they just don't really have the time to take on board. And that's where Viewpoint would help you differentiate, or would certainly have helped me differentiate if I had this available to me at the time. Next slide, Glenn. So I'll pass back to Glenn. I think one of the points here is, I think marketeers, and I was certainly guilty of this, is being stuck on, some of the industry averages out there in terms of what I should be looking for my engagement. Glenn, maybe you can talk more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So as Colin says, partners are receiving comms all the time, and typically, as I mentioned earlier, it's one directional, right? It's from the vendor out to the partner, based on very little segmentation normally, because the tools that exist out there, with possibly the exception of one, don't offer the level of segmentation or the level of preference-based or audience targeting that one would hope for. And that means that actually, when we're sending out these email communications, we feel it's such a shame that actually what we're doing is we're just aiming for average. Okay, we're looking at industry averages, and we might be looking in different places depending on what figure suits us best. And it might be that we're hitting click-through rates, we're hitting open rates, and they're the things that we're really judging partner engagement on. Are we getting 3% or 4% engagement based on the number of opens and click-throughs we get? Are we hitting 9% maybe on the odd occasion because it's something super specific, and actually some of the audience is really engaged? But actually, why are we actually doing this? Why are we content with aiming for average and always referring to those benchmarks as success, when actually they should be the minimum required? So that takes us on to what is Viewpoint. I'll whistle through this because I'd really like to give you guys a demo, because there's quite a lot of theory here, and it sounds like we're obviously we're talking about a solution that we believe is going to revolutionize partner comms because of the huge issue that we're seeing in terms of levels of partner communication. So very simply, this diagram explains what Viewpoint does. It literally flips partner communication on its head and becomes all about the partner, all about the user's choice, and much less about the traditional way of vendors just pushing out, bombarding content onto their partners, sometimes when they haven't even asked for it. So with Viewpoint, it's a simple process of adding content whenever and however you wish. So typically, as I mentioned earlier, with a vendor newsletter, it's all done at the end of the month. Content is gathered together, put into templates, various templates sometimes, and sent out. Sometimes that can mean that the content is late. Sometimes that can mean that the content is no longer news. In fact, it's late, and therefore, by default, is no longer news. So with Viewpoint, you can add content as soon as it's ready, as soon as it's relevant, and as soon as it is live. It will go into Viewpoint. Viewpoint acts as like a holding area and a holding matchmaker. And what it does is it matches the type of content and the subject matter of the content that you, the vendor or the distie, might post, and it matches that with all of the preferences that the users have defined. So they've defined their choices and their preferences on what content they want to receive from you and how they receive that content. And then when those tags are matched, Viewpoint will distribute the right content to the right user at the right time, even using the right method that a user will have chosen. So what we're not doing, we're not bashing email, okay? Email is still, of course, the favorite way of communicating. But what we're doing is we're saying we can use it in a much better way. And that better way is based on when the user wants to receive it. But with Viewpoint, you can receive news and content via email. You can receive it via desktop and device notification. You can receive it via text message to your mobile or cell phone, and you can receive it via actually a Slack integration that we've got. So you can post content directly into dedicated Slack channels. So it's really, really simple. Add the content, Viewpoint holds it and distributes it at a time that the user has chosen. When you give people preference and choice over the content that they receive, engagement goes up, because based on them choosing to engage with it, it means that they're far more willing to open it, to use it, to read it, and potentially even to share it. So what I'll do now is I'll actually go into a live version of Viewpoint that we have. So this is the Viewpoint that we have, viewpoint.news. You can go here and we can either add you as a user simply by putting your email address in, or you can go there yourself and sign up to receive notifications from us. So I'm going to go very, very quickly because I'm keen to open the floor to questions. But basically, yes, it is web-based. Yes, it is a piece of software that holds content. Your users will come and see this as a dashboard. It will be your partners and your partners partner users. When they come here, they can filter by any topics that can be changed and altered by you anytime, by any content type. We can have a free search bar, and we can also add in other filters like regions, or if you're a distributor, we can add in vendors. So you can share different vendors' content. You can also have a date range, and the latest content is always shared in this big panel here. Over on the right-hand side, there's a featured section where content that is tagged featured will appear. And also, for example, you can specify very featured content, or you can have this as a, for example, an advert, a static advert of content that you want there to appear there regularly. But what I want to do is show you where each individual receives the magic. Okay, because in the preference center, that's where we say no magic happens, because every user gets to set their own preferences in terms of content and in terms of topics that they're interested in. So all of these filters are changeable, obviously. So each user can come in and see and choose what type of content they're interested in by simply tagging individually or checking all. They can also choose what topics they're interested in, and this can be vendor specific, it can be your business specific, or they can check all. We can change all of these, and also they can make this their default view. So anytime they log into the system or come to the system, their default view of filters will be shown on the home page. Over on the right-hand side is where the second amount of magic happens. This is where the user decides how they receive information and content and comms and news from you. So as I mentioned, we still have an email option, but you can choose when you receive emails, whether that's immediately, whether that's a daily update, whether that's weekly summary, or you can opt out of emails altogether. You can enable browser alerts, and that's browser alerts on desktop, on mobile or cell phone, and on tablet. Simply clicking this button will enable and disable. You can add a text message bundle. You can add a text message bundle simply by adding your cell phone number here, and every time content is available, you'll receive a text message. Or you can also subscribe to an opt-in weekly newsletter, where based on your filters over on the left-hand side, you'll be sent a summary newsletter of all of the things that you have opted in to be interested in. The other option down here would be that we can add a Slack integration. We have that existing, and you can either create a dedicated Slack channel, or you can post content into an existing Slack channel. And then you simply click save, and as a user, all of those preferences are saved. And they can do that once, or they can come back and change their preferences whenever they wish. As a content creator, so we'll flip views now. So we'll go to the admin section, and this is where typically you would share your content. So rather than putting it in a a holding area or putting it into an email inbox or putting it into a storage space and saving it up until the end of the month. In the content space, you are able to share content in one of three ways. Firstly, you can aggregate content. So you can add automated RSS feeds or YouTube channels to this section, which will automatically share content to your Viewpoint from a trusted source, either an RSS feed or a YouTube channel, anytime that new content is added. So anytime new content is added to a YouTube channel or an RSS feed, it will appear on your Viewpoint dashboard. You can curate, and this is the demo that I'll do now. So aggregation is automatically sharing content that already exists. Curating is manually adding content that already exists. So rather than save it up to the end of the month to put it into the template of the newsletter to send out, you simply come here, click curate, and then add content. And we'll do it live now. So if I go to our website and find a piece of content that I want to share with our audience, I'll go to the insight and I'll grab the latest blog. I think it's quite a cool blog, so I want to share it with my audience. I copy that URL and I post it into Viewpoint. I pull it through, and so what it does is it pulls through the title and it pulls through an image that's related to it. I can go back and grab, let's say that an intro summary, and I can paste that into the summary box. On the content type, so I'm matching up with the user's preferences. I can select what type of content it is and also what type of topic it's related to. I can either select one or two or three or four or all of them, either way. I can add in who the author is, and then I can add these last things here. So if I want it to be shareable, so users can then go on and share it via Twitter, LinkedIn, or otherwise, I can click this button. I can put it over on the featured section. I can add it to that weekly newsletter that we talked about earlier. And because I've got the right admin rights, I can approve it as we go. And then I click publish. So even though I've been talking through it, it's still only taken probably less than a minute to make a piece of content available to all of my users. That's appeared here at the top of the list. And if we go back to the home page, that piece of content has now appeared on the dashboard, on the home page of Viewpoint. Now, if you remember the diagram, the middle piece is the Viewpoint tech. So what's happening in the background now is Viewpoint is matching all of the user preferences with all of the tags that I added, and it will be getting ready to distribute that content out to the users that want to receive it by email now, by email at the end of the day, maybe by text message, maybe by Slack message, and maybe by a desktop publication notification that pops up. Now, the last piece that we have here is we can literally do exactly the same, but rather than sharing a piece of content that already exists, we can simply create a brand new piece of original content in the system here. So as we did before, we can add a title, we can drag and drop or grab an image off of the desktop. We use the WYSIWYG editor here to add detail of that content. We tag it up in the same way that I did previously, and then share it, feature it, put it in the newsletter, and have it approved. It's really that simple and that quick. And then Viewpoint will again match all of the tags up with all of the user preferences and distribute that content in the way and at the time that the user wants. The final thing, just to go quickly through, is that everything that happens in Viewpoint is tracked and measured and monitored. So you get there's a full analytics dashboard that goes into every piece of content, every notification that's sent, and every user's behavior, a way that they engage with what content. And when you've got that detail, you can start to look at how to craft future content strategy. So who's engaging, what are they engaging with, what's the most popular pieces of content, and how is that all putting together. And then if you're a distie, you can feed that back to vendors. And if you're a vendor, you can take that information about who and what part of your user group or your audience is interacting the most, and then you can tailor future content strategy accordingly. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into this, the notification stuff, the user stuff. But I'm going to pause now with 4 minutes to go. It's a whistle-stop tour. But quite literally, in summary, what we want to do with Viewpoint and what we want to do is try to increase partner engagement and improve partner experience through better, more engaging, more relevant, more time relevant pieces of content, allowing people, your user base, your audience, to feel more connected and engage better with the communications that you want to send out to them. With 3 minutes to go, I'll be delighted to open for some questions. Okay, we've got some questions. I've got Gabriella and Lisa, I think. How do you handle Oh, go, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I had a quick question. So does the tool allow for multiple workflows throughout the article process? So for example, copywriting, if you wanted to send it to specific people, translations, etc.
Yeah, exactly that. So it does do that, and you can monitor that at each stage. So as doing the demo, that meant that I could admin everything and approve everything as it goes. But if you can have different levels of access, and therefore if you, for example, are the content creator, but you don't have approval rights, then you can send it to be approved, or you can send it to be translated, for example.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Pleasure. Lisa, did you have something? Was it in the chat?
I'll just read it out. It was, how do you handle personalization, i.e. by role type?
Yes, you can. Yeah, again, when we configure the system, really simple and easy way of doing it. It just means that whether it's by role type, by organization type, by partner type, or by partner tier, we can absolutely put those things in place when we configure it for you at the outset. So yes, we can create personalization, whether it be this content is for marketing, this content is for sales, this content is technical, and it's for a technical audience. But yeah, that comes in the kind of original customization at the original configuration point, which I guess is also an interesting point, because the way that we've built this is so simple that it can be up and running, ready to go, and configured within a really short space of time. There's nothing complex. We can do two-way integration, single sign-on with CRM, so Salesforce. We've got one of those going at the moment. It can integrate via SSO as well with your partner portals. Not naming any names, but we integrate with quite a lot of the most well-known PRM and partner portals out there. Minute to go. Was there anything else from anybody before we close and say thank you ever so much for joining? Please follow up with Colin and I either here on email or on LinkedIn. But yeah, any more questions before we head off? Okay, well, in that case then, thanks ever so much, everybody, for attending. Really appreciate you taking the time out to come look at Viewpoint and how we're hoping to revolutionize the future of two-partner communications. Yes, so Colin will actually, let me just pop this up here. Colin will follow up with all of our emails. But yeah, I'm Glenn at purechannels.com, and Colin is Colin at viewpointcomms.com. Either on LinkedIn or direct on email. Thanks again, everyone. Really appreciate it. That's it from us. There will be more communication coming out soon and more webinars as well. All right. All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.